So this video is actually way darker than you might expect. We're actually just highlighting world's largest cities for the last 1,000 years. However, you'll notice a theme where a lot of cities will just go drastically down. They'll just plummet. Their population basically just cease to exist. Why does that happen? Well, mass casualty events, especially because we're starting the year 1000. So there's some horrific sieges that have taken place over the last 1000 years. There's been some horrific battles, some horrific, I mean, we're not even talking about World War levels of things in the last 125 years. It gets really crazy, and I'm going to try to highlight some of the dark things that this video kind of glosses over a bit. Again, it just looks like the numbers are going down. Like, I wonder why the numbers are going down. Oh, the numbers are going down because, for instance, the Mongolians have literally burned everything to the ground. So, let's go ahead and start. Obviously, we're starting off the list with the Song Dynasty. This is a city in modern-day China. The Chinese are going to go all over the place. Sometimes they're not always wars that cause these mass casualties. In the case of China, it could be just a flood, or, starvation, or things like that. So, starting off in the year 1000, we have 1027 to be exact. We have a city out of China, a city out of South Asia, Chola Empire, modern-day India. Look at how huge the Khmer Empire is, Angkor. That's crazy. That's in modern-day Cambodia. Chola, again, India. Byzantium, Constantinople, 5th on the list. That's a city that falls. That's a city that's going to get hit pretty devastatingly a lot of different times. And then we have some Sicily. We have Islamic southern Italy, basically. Kyoto, Cairo, out of Egypt, Baghdad. But anyways, let's go ahead and press play. So right now, most cities, the vast majority of world cities, because this is the top 1,000, this is the top 15, I believe. Is it 15 right here? 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Yeah, 15. So this is the top 15. The vast majority of cities do not have even over 100,000 population. So it really goes to show just how many human beings are currently living on Earth right now. But obviously, as we head into this video, everyone's going to start to get over 100,000. But again, here's already one of those events. We see in Kyoto lose a lot. They're dipping down. So Song Dynasty, the city, a political and cultural center, thrived on agriculture, trade, and canal transport. So already Kyoto is... Now, sometimes it's not always dark. However, there's... I gotta say, I feel like a lot of times it is dark. Yeah, especially like historically speaking, 1,000 years ago, it's probably a really horrific event that's taken place, and that's the only thing that drove thousands and thousands of people out of these cities. Now, migration could be also a cause. I guess you could also say that a city that's rising heavily fast could be because also a very tragic event took place nearby to these cities, and everyone had to run to another city. That's something else to keep in mind. Kind of crazy that China's only showing up twice here, considering they have so much population, but their population might be spread out heavily. So Song Dynasty flourishes, but faces constant pressure from northern nomadic states. We were talking a lot about the Mongolians. The Mongolians are going to cause a huge, a whole lot of casualties all over Asia, Europe. It's going to get crazy. Kiev and Rus, so this is before Russia has formed. Obviously, it's the year 1000. Look, Kyoto's literally dropping. They're still dropping. They're still dropping. They're still dropping. 80,000. 75,000. That's crazy. They're literally just left the list. So things like that, that's going to be normal for this video. Just like, hundreds of thousands of people just gone, wiped from existence. Maybe not wiped from existence, but yes. I mean, sometimes the cities just don't. Again, it doesn't always have to be a horrific, dark thing. It could just be a political thing or a geographical thing or, resources, but usually it's dark, like I said. Okay, so Chola Empire rise, founded around 1025. It became so this is in India, South Asia. So right now, China and India have a lot. However, you'll see cities punch way above their weight, even though maybe the country itself doesn't have a lot of population, the country as a whole. However, if an entire country's population is focused on a singular city, well, then that's how, they pop. Like Kiev and Rus, I'm thinking about right here. I'm thinking of a state, a U.S. state for a random reason, but Illinois, 75% or 70% of all of Illinois' population just comes from Chicago. Nobody else lives anywhere else in Illinois. I should say the Chicago metro area. The city's name, the city of Chola. Oh yeah, we talked about this. The Seljuks on the rise, heavily on the rise. That is crazy. Baghdad, with just a completely black flag. Watch Baghdad. Spoiler alert, watch what happens to Baghdad, because Mongolia, Genghis Khan, is about to take over very soon. Very, very soon enough. Also, Paris is going to be on a rise. Paris is going to go through all sorts of little dips and rises, but Paris is definitely going to start climbing up on this list here. It is a symbol of imperial power, wealth, military victories across South and Southeast Asia. Okay. Man, Angkor Wat. Second most populated city. That's crazy. Sorry, I shouldn't say the Angkor Wat. That is obviously the famous symbol that's on the Cambodian flag currently. But yeah, the Khmer Empire, or the Khmer Empire, very, very powerful place at this time. Constantinople is declining a little bit. That Fourth Crusade is going to come up, so they're going to get sacked soon enough. Sometimes cities are leaving the list because the dynasty is changing that's taken power, or look, I guess we're talking about it here. Seized by the legendary Saladin, Cairo was forged into the capital of his new Ayyubid Empire. So sometimes they go off, they don't die instantly. Like you'd have to see what we saw with Kyoto, like a decline, a slow decline. Okay, so it's now getting into the 1200s. Paris is still climbing. Chola looks like something terrible is happening to Chola. Chola is about to leave the list. Another Song city has now entered. We actually now, for the first time, have 4 Chinese, the Song dynasty. Beijing, which is a familiar city. Crazy that Beijing 1,000 years ago only barely had over 100,000 population. It's just such a massive city now. So the only place in Europe, well, Constantinople isn't even in Europe, is Sicily. I believe the only place with the highest place is Sicily, with the biggest city. Very surprising. And then obviously it's Paris, France. But Constantinople, does that consider? I mean, that's definitely, I think, on the Asia side. That's technically on the the majority of the cities on the Anatolia side. Nanjing. From here on, he commanded the construction of the mighty citadel and a fortress built to defy the Crusaders. Yeah, so it's Crusade time. Who's going down? Oh, here goes Constantinople going down. Under 140,000, 135,000. Baghdad, the Caliphate's end. In the early 1200s, Baghdad was a prestigious cultural and religious capital of the Abbasid Caliphate. Look at Constantinople. It's still declining. It's still declining. It's still declining. Oh, they're dropping out. Such a major city. Does it actually drop off the list? That is so crazy because... yeah, they're going to drop off the list, aren't they? Well, now everyone's over 100,000. Sorry, I'm really honing in. I'm really tunnel visioning on Byzantium. Does it drop back below 100,000 people? Holy crap, no wonder Byzantium ceased to exist. Anyways, I'm so focused on Byzantium because Byzantium is Constantinople is going to pop back up on this list, but it might be under another name. Like, people will go back to this spot. It's ultimately, there's just a geographic buff that a lot of these places are going to get throughout history. They might have a different name or they might be under a different empire, but the geographical location of a lot of these cities just makes them so powerful that even if a lot of, hundreds of thousands of humans died and a lot of people left for a time, they eventually end up being pulled back because, maybe like trade, for instance. Like I'm thinking Singapore has always been an incredibly important city. It just naturally is a port city where a ton of trade goes off of its coasts. So anyways, Constantinople is going to pop back up on the list. It might be under a different name. It might be called Istanbul when we see it again. But yes, okay, so here's the Mongol invasion though. So watch what happens to Baghdad. Where did they max out at? Now I kind of want to go back. I think Baghdad popped up at... they're about 250,000. Well, what happened to Fez for a second there? So, yeah, so Mongol army led. They're at about 250,000. They're above 250,000. Boom! That's it? Did it not even come back? Holy snap, what? I did not expect it to just disappear like that. I thought it was going to just like... holy crap. Yeah, many historians are saying over at least 200,000 people were destroyed in the event. That's crazy. So basically overnight, the city gone. The brutal destruction ended the 500-year-old caliphate and the Islamic Golden Age. That is crazy. So there are other places certainly that are going to be infected by, I mean, a lot of these places are going to be affected by Mongolians, even if it's not directly affected. Even they might not get burned to the ground like Baghdad did, but they could be on the outskirts. They could be seeing what's going on. Byzantium is slowly, gradually getting back up there in terms of population. And now I think we're going to see the decline of the Mongols here. We're also going to see definitely the decline of the Khmer Empire, that's for sure. But look at Cairo, Egypt. Whoa, 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 whoa. Oh, is this, what is happening? Oh, the fall of, so all of the Song dynasty just collapsed. And that's because the Mongols defeated the Song. My bad. Completely forgot about that. So yeah, basically all of the cities in the Song dynasty left. Is that right? So there was 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 cities just left us. And basically, they all just disappear. That is how much... It's crazy when looking at it from this viewpoint because it just shows what a drastic imprint the Mongolian Empire left. You know, like, because I study so much things just on a map basis, but seeing it on a human level, seeing it the way, like, cities are literally physically destroyed is crazy. Now, some of the cities are basically still high up there because, yeah, Beijing comes back. It's under the Yuan dynasty, so it's like Mongolian-controlled China, basically. The Mongols defeat the Song and capture the territories. So they kind of came back. Not all of them, though. There's only 3 now, and definitely numbers have changed quite a bit. So this automatically forces Cairo, Egypt, or it's now called the Mamluks, into second place now. So they've kind of gone, I mean, it's kind of declines, and there's all sorts of, again, we have to consider famines. You know, something like famines can definitely affect things. Plagues, oh yeah, aren't the plagues coming up? The plague times are going to come up. Disease, that's a big thing for a lot of Europe. Here goes the Timurids. China enters a new era under the Yuan rule, ending the Song dynasty. So China's going to have a couple different name changes as we continue on. Interesting flag choices. Some of these countries, this is so early, some of these countries don't really have a whole lot of flags they could use. Well, actually, maybe 300 years ago is more drastic, but bam, all right, there you go, China. China's very good at popping that population back up because now we have 2 Chinese cities, once again, leading the charge. So here we go. Here's Paris. Paris was a very populated city. Again, you would think, I thought that when I was before I watched this video, I would think that we would just see nothing but Indian and Chinese cities destroying it. But that was more of a more recent development. Throughout time, I mean, obviously you're going to see a lot of that. You're going to see a lot of population from India and China, but it doesn't mean that they were focused in on one city. Paris is big, London's going to grow, New York is going to grow. Those are going to be huge cities that end up taking over. And then we haven't even talked about, I mean, Constantinople is pretty soon going to have a name change. Right now, it's kind of struggling. Oh yeah, they're about to dip back under 100,000. Yeah, Constantinople just went back under 100,000, but so many people are also dying. Oh, here goes Venice right here. So bam, Venice has now passed them up. Oh yeah, look, Constantinople's literally off the list. That's crazy. So heart of France, the city grows wealthy for trade markets and royal patronage of art and education. So Paris is going to remain up there. They're going to go through some pretty tragic events, though. Also, just losing like a ton of your young males is a problem as well, or just younger people in a war or whatever. It could be for a multitude of reasons. Now, the 100 Years' War is about to start. Oh, here it is. Paris faces siege, occupation, and conflict. Interesting, they're fighting the English here, but the English they don't even have a single city on this list. They will. Genoa enters the list. Obviously, as we enter into the Renaissance, Italy's going to become more and more important. More and more Italian cities are going to enter. Holy crap. Okay, so now the Ming Dynasty is taking charge. Ming's going to hold on to China for quite some time. So finally, the Mongol rule has collapsed and decades of rebellion and unrest. How many Ming cities? Okay, so... Oh, man, look at Beijing drop. Beijing's dropping under 100,000. Under 250,000? Oh, no. Okay, they're going to pop back up again. So we have 4 Ming cities once again. Man, this is crazy because like 300 years ago, this is what it looked like. There was about the same number of 100,000 populated cities. Look at how, like, just uncontrollable society and civilization was at this time. And honestly, like, it's a relatively new development that we were able to figure out cities and not have just, like, massive percentages of our population die. But, like, literally at the start of this video, we had about the same amount of cities, world cities, with over 100,000 population. And 3 centuries later, again, it's about the same number of cities with like 100,000 population. Now we have higher highs though. Look at the Mamluks go. That's crazy. We have a little bit higher highs. So Nanjing declares himself emperor, founding the Ming dynasty. And this is another Indian city in South Asia. Ming is once again taken charge. Nanjing. Ming has now got a bunch of cities popping up on the list. There's 2 Timurid cities. So this is in the modern-day country of Iran. And on the outskirts, wow, Paris struggling. Paris almost dropped out too. Look at how good Asia's doing here. You see these ebbs and flows where like sometimes European cities are taken over. Sometimes it's obviously Asian cities. We don't see a whole lot of African cities, except out of Cairo, obviously. Here goes Granada entering the list. Oh, Fez in Morocco. But it's kind of going back and forth. Genoa has the English flag, so it's kind of confusing me a little bit. But okay, so 1412, we're going to enter the Renaissance period. We're going to enter Age of Exploration. We're going to start to finally, well, it's going to take us a minute, but we're going to start to see some cities out of the New World eventually in this video. So Vijay Nagar. I don't know, man. I don't know. I always mispronounce this in EU4 as well. So yeah, that's the big city out of India. There's 6 Ming cities. There's a total of 6 Ming cities on here, which is crazy. It's interesting because the way this is framed, like Europe could be doing very well right now, but because Asia's also doing very well, they're just going to be able to hold a lot more population. Oh, Kyoto has popped up on the list again. That's pretty cool. Kyoto is finally back. City rises. Oh yeah, trade and stuff like that. All right, well, we'll see what happens to Japan. Bam! Tenochtitlan and the Aztecs. Oh, that's good. I completely forgot about that mass casualty event. I shouldn't have. So the Aztecs are going to lose a ton of population because of the Spanish and because of disease. That's right. So New World population is going to decline by, what, 50 to 25% or more? So that's going to be very sad if we see another New World city. I think it should be just the Aztecs, but very cool to see them on this list. So they're going to literally disappear overnight because the Spanish literally burned everything to the ground. Thanks for that, Cortez. Great idea. The Oyo Empire, bam, Bangladesh has entered. Bangladesh, Dhaka. Is it called Bangladesh at this time? I don't think it is. I think it's under a different kingdom's name, but maybe. This video is pretty intricate and like highly, smart with the flags and the details, so maybe it is. But anyways, the Timurids done. Key city in the Timurid realm, a major city under the Timurid rule. Oh, okay, yeah, so they're really growing still. The Timmies, Cairo remaining high, really shows what much of a force Egypt remained. You know what I mean? Like we kind of forget Egypt after the Roman times, but Egypt was still such a huge hub, and obviously Egypt had a massive buff where their cities, their river, their main river, which was the lifeblood of Cairo, wasn't a chaotic bipolar river like the Yellow River was in China. Literally dynasties collapsed because of how chaotic and bipolar their river was, whereas it was kind of peace and calmness. The world's longest river, the Nile, was chill as hell, and that's why Cairo was able to sustain such high population. It also helps that there's a massive, huge, world's biggest desert to the south of them, which kind of keeps them safe. It's hard to arch an army of hundreds of thousands through the Sahara Desert, obviously speaking. So Cairo is in a pretty safe spot. You can, of course, still take Cairo, but that's a little bit of an advantage. You wouldn't think a desert is an advantage, but it kind of is. Here go the rise of the Ottomans. Oh, so we've already seen 1453. Constantinople is gone. Bursa currently is the top Ottoman city, but wait for Istanbul to regrow. Fez. Oh, there's Constantinople. Again, Constantinople has been hovering around 100,000 this entire video. Watch what it does now. Watch as the Ottomans grow. Bursa briefly was the top populated city. Constantinople is now Turkey. Prospers in the capital as the Ottoman Empire. Wow, the Aztecs. They're about to pass up the Timurids in 5th place. The jewel of the Ottoman Empire. Yeah, so this is the rise here. The Europeans are going to try to go around the Ottomans, and that's how we're going to find the Americas. Of another Ottoman city. The city prospers under Mehmed II, captures it from the Byzantines. So bam, they're passing up Iran here. Yeah, the Aztecs were briefly in the 5th place spot, but now the Spanish are going to discover the Aztecs, and they're going to burn the whole thing to the ground. It's crazy. We haven't seen a single Spanish city on here. Also, Paris is no longer on the list. Oh, there we go. Speak of the devil. And this is actually Naples, a part of the Spanish Empire. So, damn, it really shows just how many people were on the Italian Peninsula, but the Italian Peninsula has been split heavily, fractured heavily for the entirety of this video. After the Roman times and after Byzantium, the Italian Peninsula was really splintered up. But yeah, it held a lot of population. Cairo, so now they just took over. The Mamluks, the Ottomans have the city of Cairo. They took it relatively peacefully without too many people dying, it looks like. I mean, because they kind of popped back up. Maybe there was still a lot of people that died, I'm sure. But jewel of the Ottoman Empire, Constantinople becomes the hub for diplomacy, education, and commerce across 3 continents. Yes, Asia, Africa, and Europe. I missed the fall of the Khmer Angkor. But that's because in Southeast Asia now the Ayutthaya is now the major kingdom in Southeast Asia. Venice is continuing to grow. There's now currently 5 Ming cities. There's always like 5 Ming cities. And Constantinople is about to be the most populated place on Earth, it looks like, which is an incredible feat because we have not yet seen anything like that. Has it always been a city out of India and China at this point, which is not surprising. Those areas can hold massive amounts of human population. Just very fertile areas. And here we go. Imperial capital of the Mughals. Agra rises as a major Mughal city under Emperor. So this is out of India. So the Mughals are going to have a lot. Constantinople. So it's still 16th century. Paris has finally re-entered the list. Paris is going to slowly climb. Kyoto's over 200,000. Very nice, Kyoto. Oh, boy. And now the Mughals are taking over. That's why we're highlighting the Mughal and their rise. There's a couple of... Naples is now rising up to 200,000. Remember, this is... Spain and Portugal is going crazy in the New World right now. But we're not going to see a New World city. I think the first New World city should be... I actually don't know. New York is the obvious answer, but I don't know if it's New York. Will we see another city, specifically in South America? I wonder. I actually don't. I'm not sure. But remember, there's just not that many people. It's hard to get thousands, millions of people, human beings, across the Atlantic Ocean at this point, obviously in history. It's a race between these European cities of Paris and Naples. Those are the only European cities currently on the list. London finally entered. Okay, there we go. It's about time, London. Imperial capital of the Mughals. The Ottomans have 2 whole cities, but yes, the Ottomans do have number 1. It's crazy how powerful Constantinople got. Again, you can push it down, and it can have centuries of humiliation, but that city is just a crucial shipping city, a crucial shipping lane. That's just going to be the theme there. It's just geographically heavily buffed. Naples is the 4th biggest city. That's crazy. So the Industrial Revolution is obviously going to change a lot of the way we make cities. Trade, technology in general is going to change a lot the way cities... I mean, I wish I knew more about, city construction, city technological advancements, plumbing, things like that. Obviously I don't specialize in that stuff. I'm more of just a history, geography, geopolitics guy. But there's definitely certain things that are making it better and easier for humans to live in settlements, that's for sure. Building technologies, amassing bigger populations. Okay, so Kyoto, obviously the old capital of Japan, under the Tokugawa Empire. I believe the Japanese are going to stay relatively stable now. Yeah, there we go. The spiritual capital remains the imperial capital. And so I think the Japanese have gone through their warlord period. They should be good. I don't think they're going to splinter too much more. But we'll get back into them a little bit later, obviously, because Tokyo's the biggest city. I believe we will end this video with Tokyo as number 1. So crazy that Tokyo wasn't even on the list, and they will end up being number 1. Something horrific is happening in Beijing. Clearly, either a flood or a famine or God knows, honestly. But no, we do know. But Beijing is just dropping heavily. Moguls are now, look at how many cities the Moguls have on here. Well, I guess it's just 3. Whereas the Ming are down to now 2 cities. London's going to continue to grow. And London, for most of its history here, is going to be really safe. London doesn't face, besides, I mean, before World War II, does London face any, like, immediate fighting right there, immediate destruction in London? Unless I'm missing something, there could be a major event. I'm sure I'm missing something minor, but, like, you know, obviously the air raid that the Nazis were doing over London, that you know, obviously caused a lot of chaos for London, but that might be the most impactful thing that London goes through now at this point in the video, and so on. Yeah, I'm not talking about the Vikings and things like that, like obviously before this time period, but I mean like now until the rest of this video. Naples is now dropping. I guess we're going to see. Yeah, London grows rapidly as the center of finance, so London might not see a whole lot of massive declines in population unless people are like leaving. War-tornness shouldn't affect... Oh, what the heck? For a little bit there, we only had 14 cities. Osaka is now to the list. Kyoto, Edo, so we now have 3 Japanese cities. Paris is 4th. Beijing is still 3rd, but they did drop under 500,000. Constantinople, still number 1. The Mongols are in decline, I believe. The Great Fire of 1666 devastating the city, sparking... Okay, so maybe... Oh, but... Dude, that's the crazy thing about cities. That is one thing that I have noticed. Again, I'm not a city expert like I mentioned earlier, but one thing about cities, bro, it sounds weird, but fires ultimately are responsible for a lot of positive things afterwards. Obviously, fires are horrific at the time, and so many, loss of lives, and so much of the city is destroyed, and it's sad because we lose so much. We lose so much culture and historical things. But man, when cities rebuild after a fire, it's really an opportunity. I mentioned this because I don't live that far away from the Palisades fire earlier this year that wiped out an entire, city here in Southern California. But it will come back. I mean, ultimately, history shows that usually a great fire happens, and then they rebuild it and they reconstruct it, and it kind of sparks a new age, basically a new age. I mean, look at another Californian city, San Francisco. The earthquake in the early 1900s, and then the fire that preceded that, horrific. But that's the San Francisco that we now know. All the rebuilding that they did afterwards. But yes, okay. So London is now in 6th place. London might be passing up Paris soon. Emergence as a power center, the Bank of England's founding. So now the English are heavily, the 13 colonies. They're heavily in North America, colonizing Canada, doing all that stuff. 1600s, very interesting time in the U.S. I'm really starting to enjoy more and more of this 17th century America. Such an interesting, kind of dark, scary time. Okay, so Ming has been replaced by the Qing dynasty now. The Qing dynasty will survive for a little bit, but their 1800s is not going to be too fun. There's 3 Mughal cities, but the Mongols will begin to die. Oh, here we go. Look at the Dutch go. Amsterdam is now entered. Let's go. So yeah, the Europeans really starting to figure things out now with trade and colonization, and they're just starting to eat up the entire world, all the land, all around. So this is going to give the Europeans some buffs that the Chinese and the Indians, or whatever they're calling themselves at this point. I mean, it's the Qing for China, and then India is mostly the Mongols at this point. Iran is also a geographical location that holds a lot of population. Typically, that's the interesting outlier about Amsterdam. That's surprising. You don't normally see this. Cairo's declining in population. So the Ottomans are now going to begin their very, very, very long decline. So, the Ottomans, Istanbul is definitely going to fall. Wait, I just realized they didn't change the name to Istanbul. Is that supposed to be like that? One thing I'm thinking about this time period, the 1700s, is we did have a Great Northern Empire known as the Swedish Great Northern Empire, and there was going to be a Great Northern War that they were going to start with the Russians. However, you're not going to see that reflected in this video because there's just it's just very difficult to hold huge populations in the Scandinavian and Nordic regions. It is frigid up there. It's tundra. It's hard to sustain lots and lots of human life in Scandinavia. So just important to remember that this video doesn't necessarily reflect every empire or everything that's going on, because sometimes you can leave a huge impact in history, but you don't necessarily have a huge population in your country or just huge population in a singular city. That's very, very important to remember. Oh, I missed the complete decline of the Aztecs. My bad. Yeah, the complete decline. The Aztecs completely dropped off, sadly. I missed that tragic event. Qing's going to retake the title as #1, Beijing, I mean. Is going to retake the title. Beijing is secured as the capital of the new Manchu-led Qing dynasty. It's because they're coming from Manchuria. London has passed up France. So London and France are going to be fighting a couple times here. The French and the UK are going to have an interesting next 100 years. Kingdom of Naples. Qing is going to be in an okay time period now. Oh, I think Amsterdam's going to fall off. When are we going to get our first 1 million population city? We should be coming up very soon. Do we need the industrial age for that? We might need the industrial age. We started getting pretty good at holding almost 1 million people in a singular city. Well, China did, I should say specifically. Constantinople, as you've probably noticed, as I've noticed, they've literally been hovering around 700,000 for the last like 2.5 centuries, which is kind of interesting. London has just been gradually growing. So as I think a lot of these Japanese cities. Oh man, what it says, isn't it amazing just to be a beautiful island nation? Beautiful island nation, and you're safe from so many things. It's crazy. It is really such a huge buff. 5 Qing dynasty cities. London, Constantinople is really declining again. Yeah, that's why it's called the dying man of Europe. They were literally dying, the city itself. Also, trade, Constantinople just as a geographical position in the world map just doesn't mean as much anymore. It was the center of the world when the world was just Europe, Asia, and Africa, but now it's certainly not. There's so much trade going around the Atlantic now. And of course, around the Cape of Good Hope in South Africa, the Malaccan Strait. Its immense population and strict order make it a marvel of urban control. Yeah, that's literally what I was talking about. Okay, so if anyone's going to get over 1 million population, it is going to be Qing without the Industrial Revolution, because that's what they're able to do. By 1750, Beijing stands as the unrivaled center of East Asia world. You could definitely say that again. And Chinese population is going to just get utterly obliterated, starting in that century of humiliation that China always talks about. Utterly obliterated. So Paris is having a tough time, but Paris is not an island. France is not an island. But France is having a tough time getting over 600,000. Flourishing under Pax Tokugawa, the Edo present-day Tokyo thrives under the Tokugawa shogunate. Peace with no wars disrupting daily life. Yeah, so that's what I'm noticing out of London, the UK, and Japan. They have these mass stretches of overall peaceful times, overall. They're not facing too much civil unrest. I mean, they're islands, so their big thing is they just have to fight civil wars. But they're not seeing a whole lot of invasion from outside powers. Qing feel they threat. There's civil unrest there, but there's also outside powers that come in starting in the 19th century. Foreign trade. Edo is a massive self-contained city. London is over 800,000. Oh, Beijing did get over 1 million population. That's crazy. Before we entered the 1800s. And damn, they got another city. Oh, wow. So the decline of the Qing, all these Qing cities, it's going to be very sad. Because, yeah, China's going to disappear from the video for a little bit. That's how bad it gets. But, yeah, so I missed the American independence, all that stuff. We have no population, basically, in North America. Not yet. We will pop up on this list, but we just became independent. There's nobody really living in the New World. We haven't seen a singular New World city since the Aztecs. How crazy is that? They had so many people, and just like that, Spanish wiped them out. Crazy. So, yeah, now French Revolution. Watch Paris. Watch Paris. I'm going to back them up, actually. Watch Paris. So that over 500,000. Here we go. Now watch what's going to go down. Paris did jump ahead of Constantinople. And Napoleon's going to take over. Napoleon seizes power. Oh, he's actually expanding. Oh, but does this... Okay, well, if you count for how big the French Empire grew at this time when it was under Napoleon, then... and especially considering how many people probably moved to Paris. I mean, France controlled things from Croatia to Spain to the Netherlands, the lowlands. So, wait, why do the Ottomans have a different flag here? Why are the Ottomans using that in Cairo? Anyways, so Paris is actually exploding. Paris French Empire. Holy crap, is that what's happening? Napoleon invades Russia, Moscow burns. Ah, man, I wish St. Petersburg was on this list, but we're not going to see them right here. Oh, it is. Wait, where do they come from? Here's St. Petersburg. We actually had 2 Russian cities. It's about time. Huh, St. Petersburg was actually okay. Unless I missed those numbers. I didn't see a huge decline there. Also, not seeing a huge decline from Paris either. There could have been a ton of people in Napoleonic. All the Napoleonic empires just ended. 2 Sicilies. Okay, so now we're going to see German unification, Italian unification. Japan has actually fallen No, actually they haven't, but they were top on the list. They've just kind of been surpassed a little bit. So the Bourbon Restoration. London's over 1 million population. Bam. And they're actually exploding in population now. Constantinople stayed pretty strong in that 5th place spot. Now we have the rise of the Russians. I mean, the Russians got their... They were cemented as a great power after they won Sweden in the Great Northern War, but they finally have cities that have significant populations. 1825. So the Russians have 2 major cities, St. Petersburg and Moscow, of course. And London is number 1. London has officially passed Beijing. So, and yeah, it's going to be a bad time for China now, but London is doing fantastic. How many times is Paris going to change? Man, they just love changing things. Oh, Berlin. Berlin, which is now currently Prussia, has entered the list. The Industrial Revolution drives migration from the countryside, swelling the city's population. Absolutely insane. I'm just thinking about Jack the Ripper. I'm not sure why, but it's just like Jack the Ripper coming up around his time. So many people to kill if you really think about it. I mean, that's a weird thing to say, Drew. That's a really weird thing to say, but there's just what chaos, you know what I mean? That's what I think about. I just think of what chaos all of a sudden. Imagine your population just ballooning of a city overnight where civilization is not used to having a massive city, already massive city, double in size over the course of a decade or 2 or 3. It's like, what a chaotic mess. That reminds me also of the Kowloon walled city, which I visited myself in Hong Kong. Well, it's been deconstructed now, but you can visit like the ruins or whatever. You could see where it used to be built. I don't know if you can visit. There's a lot of things called Kowloon in Hong Kong, but anyways, that's a chaotic mess. The most densely populated city on Earth for a time there, and I don't think we'll ever come close to how densely populated that was. This revolution is driving. Okay, so now London is at 2 million, and the Qing dynasty has begun their century of humiliation. Paris is in their July monarchy. New York has finally entered the list. No Amsterdam, though. Not only New York, but also Philly. Let's go, Philly. Also, Manchester's entered the list. So watch as New York begins to explode. Well, there's going to be a civil war. I don't know if that's going to affect population too much in the U.S. Sorry, New York's population too much. Maybe a little bit. Vienna has now entered. City very rich with art and things like that. Liverpool is now here. New York is exploding. Paris and the French Empire. Let's see. We're about to enter into, obviously, the Civil War. There's 3 cities out of London. Here goes. I'll be honest, I did not know Philly was on this list. That's kind of crazy. Good for Philly. I did not know that they were historically that big of a city. I would have thought it was Chicago. I mean, Chicago will enter, I think, the list. Will it? I'm actually not 100%. But if I thought another city, if I thought the second most populated American city in this video, I thought it would be Chicago, but I guess it's Philly. Makes sense with the way we grow. It's harder to get more and more people out towards the west. Dang, look at London at 3 million population. That's crazy. That is crazy. Yeah, so New York's population just continued to grow even during the Civil War because we're already in the Civil War. But anyways, we have Italian unification. Is that going to affect much of Italy's singular cities? It might. I think, will Rome pop up on this list? I'm not 100%, but certainly Germany will and Berlin will. From war to wonder, Berlin's 19th century transformation. Berlin thrives under reforms after the Napoleonic Wars, modernizing, administrating. Yeah, Germany will be a thing. Berlin's in 6th place now. Vienna and Austria-Hungary, so now we have the start of the Empire of Japan. Tokyo's kind of fallen off a little bit. New York is in 3rd place. We're now at... This is a very interesting screenshot because we only have 2 Chinese cities and 2 Indian cities. Such a rare thing for most of this video, right? There's always been at least 3 Chinese cities and 3 Indian cities. We've only seen 2 and 2. I think if we go back further, it was even less than that. But yeah, we really have a lot of, population. Heavy, all in Europe and the West. But yeah, New York, here we go. Berlin. So officially Germany has been formed. I guess Italy won't be making a little thing. Anything here. Obviously British Raj is Indian. Is it going to drop though? Yeah, it did drop. We lost one of them. Oh, one of them came back. Glasgow. From war to wonder, Berlin's... Oh, okay, so cultural institutions and vibrant public life cemented Berlin as the leading European capital. But it's still in 4th, and then Vienna right here. I always make a reference to this, but it's interesting to think about how, I think about this all the time, actually, but when you think of certain cities and countries and states, there's certain countries and states that are just singular cities that we don't even really think about. I guess France, it's hard to, you don't want to disregard an entire nation, but it's interesting to look at France as kind of just Paris in a way. Obviously France is huge at this time and they're having resources all over the place, but I made the example earlier about Illinois. Illinois is oftentimes just Chicago. When you think of Illinois, you're literally just thinking Chicago. There's different ways to define that, like percentage of your population in a singular city. But, the other things that define a country is, of course, the landscape and the resources and things like that. You always have people living in the countryside, but I can't help but think of just defining certain nations as like almost just a certain city because they're so influential. When you remove political boundaries and off maps and remove like the geopolitical situation and you just put cities in terms of population, if you just look at a population density map, for example, you really see like how much, like where the true power and where the true influence comes out of these places, comes out of cities and comes out of states. Out of countries and out of states. So World War I is about to happen. There goes Chicago. So here we go. Chicago is about to pass up Philly. This reminds me of how St. Louis used to also be a very big American city, and that also disappeared overnight. Not that Philly's insignificant. Philly's very important, but I don't think we think of it as the third most powerful city. That's certainly not the case. The three most populated states right now are none of these. It's California, Texas, and Florida in that order, and which are none of these cities. But this is 1888, so a lot of things happen to America that changes a lot of stuff. Moscow and St. Petersburg still up there. Still up there. Remember, Russia doesn't always have like a huge population. It's very frigid. It's hard to hold lots of population. But yeah, look at the top five. Look how chaotic this world war is about to be that take place. Because the top 5 cities are all 5 cities that are going to be participating in World War I. We are literally at a time period where there is a single Indian city and a single Qing dynasty city. That's crazy. That has not happened yet. Will it go even? Oh, we also have 14 out of the top 15 with over 1 million population, but London's at 6 million. Jeez, UK was so powerful. That's so crazy. 4 British cities. Yeah, okay, so yeah, we have Ellis Island just exploding. America's population is going to explode. New York's going to just go crazy with it in 1900. And we're really going to be buffed after the World Wars. Osaka and Japan and Tokyo. Just keeping an eye on that. Oh, Boston's actually entered the list. That's crazy. Boston is the 4th biggest American city. New York is the gateway to a growing nation. Skyscrapers begin to dominate the skyline, symbolizing economic growth and ambition. Here we go. It's World War I time. And we're about to pass up. New York is about to pass up London, it looks like. More than likely, with the events that we know that's about to transpire. Oh, London's... Interesting that London's population... I was watching the number. London's population continued to grow, but it really stuttered. It really stumbled starting that World War. That's very interesting. So yeah, New York and London are just way out ahead. Then Paris, Tokyo. So Berlin, we should see, I think, a hit to Berlin, or at least a slowdown of Berlin, and then Vienna, Austria. The Ottomans haven't even entered the list, but of course the Ottomans are a part of the alliance with Germany and Austria-Hungary. Major cities across Europe like Paris, London, Berlin, and Vienna face population strains as men go. So there's so many people that we don't necessarily see population decline anymore, but we do see population stagnation. Or maybe not stagnation, but heavy slowdown. Heavy slowdown. Okay, so World War I is over. London still holds the number 1 top city. That's crazy. Of course, London wasn't affected much by World War I. Tokyo is 3rd now. Then it's Osaka, Berlin under the Weimar Republic. Oh, there we go. Argentina. Man, this reminds me of how, like in the early 1900s, Argentina was Buenos Aires specifically, very big, important New World city. A lot of that, from all my research, it really sounds like it was a lot of the European powers trying to debuff the Americans. They were trying to get another, specifically London and the UK, they were trying to get another economic power in the New World that could compete with the U.S. There's plenty of other things, but that was also a side thing. Obviously, that it doesn't work out for Buenos Aires, but Buenos Aires is still very beautiful even to this day. A lot of European. Apparently, the Argentinian economy was in the top 10 during this time. Did so much money, and obviously wouldn't stay like that. But yeah, Buenos Aires, I'm big bucket list city I have to go to. I don't know when it's going to happen, but I'm very, very excited to go down to Buenos Aires one day. So it's 1919, interwar period between World War I and World War II. Hamburg literally dropped off the list, and China is still facing... China did come back slightly with Shanghai, but heavy fighting still in China. Calcutta in British Raj. Weimar Republic, Berlin faces economic instability. And New York has surpassed London finally as the top most populated city on Earth. It should stay up there, but I think Tokyo is also going to pass it up as well. Crazy to think. I don't know why I'm thinking this. I shouldn't say this, but imagine we nuked Tokyo. Imagine that. Now, there's plenty of evidence that shows that the generals did not want to hit Tokyo, and they did not want to hit Osaka, and did not want to hit Kyoto. They wanted to hit military targets, but of course civilians were still going to be affected. There was firebombing, though, I will say that. But the important thing was not to completely evaporate a lot of these major Japanese hubs, Tokyo, Osaka, Kyoto, because obviously the U.S. still wanted to work with the Japanese. They knew what was coming. They knew the Cold War was going to happen. They knew that there was going to be this fight with the Soviet Union brewing by like 43. So by 45, they knew not to drop and not completely destroy some of these major Japanese cities. But imagine if they did. I mean, I'm sure there were generals saying, yeah, just nuke Tokyo. Why not just drop the first nuke on Tokyo? Let's just see what happens. Man, the devastation, that would be so terrible. Not that it wasn't terrible what happened to Hiroshima and Nagasaki, but 10 times worse if it was Tokyo. So boom, Hitler's taken power. St. Petersburg finally entered the list. Also Moscow. Watch what happens to Soviet cities. Watch what happens to Soviet cities during World War II. This is going to be crazy. This is going to be crazy. Boston's still up there. Here we go. Hitler's there. Dang, so it's just New York right now. Oh, then Chicago, then Philly, Los Angeles finally, 1935, then Boston. Finally, we're getting population way out there. Dang, Buenos Aires is still going. That's crazy. No wonder so many of the Germans moved to Buenos Aires. That's just our Argentina. That sounds weird to say, I know, but I'm just saying that, like, you can't go to America because they declared war on you. So if you're going to go to the New World, it's like, well, a lot of people, I know a lot about Buenos Aires. It sounds like a nice place. That's where everyone's going to. And they didn't declare war on us. That's probably what they're thinking. All right, here we go. World War II. Watch what happens. Well, 1941 is when... Oh, look at St. Petersburg. I feel like they jumped the gun a little bit in this video. The animation, has been jumping the gun in all the videos that I review on this channel. So even though it says 1939, you'll see the decline happen before, like, because, the Germans didn't go to war with the Soviet Union until 1941. So we shouldn't see St. Petersburg. Well, I mean, keep in mind the Winter War, but I think they jumped the gun a little bit. London endures the Blitz. Oh yeah, let's watch that. Let's watch as the bombing of... Oh yeah, because people just... Maybe the population doesn't necessarily die. I mean, there is a lot of people that die, obviously, during the Blitz, but people literally leave London to stay safe. There's still growth. There is still growth, but it's declining because New York is still growing so heavily. U.S. doesn't enter the war until 1941. St. Petersburg literally drops off the list. That's crazy. Yeah, St. Petersburg just gone because that siege was terrible. Brazil's finally entered. Mexico City's finally entered. Weirdly, World War II opens up spots for more New World cities to enter this list. So Mexico and Brazil, like I was saying. And finally, did Japan population change much? Japan continued to grow, even though World War II is happening in Osaka and in Tokyo. But now it's known as occupied Japan. The Americans are going to occupy it. Oh, did Paris lose a lot of population? They were growing, and now they're under German control, but they continue to grow. It's crazy because obviously World War II is the most deadly event in human history, or it's up there, the most deadly world warfare event in human history, something like that. But in terms of the cities, they still saw growth. They still saw, yeah. Anyways, okay, so India's now become independent. China is finally going to get their stuff together, and the Civil War is going to end. So we're going to see two things happen. India and China explode back in this video. They're going to take over the entire freaking list. And now, when we've looked at it from this video's perspective, that was the norm historically. China and India are supposed to be number one. Just like I talk about so oftentimes in the historical timeline of things, we're supposed to have multiple great powers. That is the norm for human history. It's not just supposed to be the US and the Soviet Union, which is what we're going to see during the Cold War. Urban cities like Warsaw, Rotterdam, Dresden are heavily destroyed, displaced millions. Yeah, they're going to move all around. India's going to have a lot of population moving all around. So Tokyo is going to pass up New York now in the 50s. Tokyo and Osaka, Japan's post-war boom. Bam, the film Godzilla's officially made. Mexico and Brazil continue to slowly climb the list. Now watch India, watch China. Where are my Chinese cities at? This is crazy. Oh, Shanghai. It's just Shanghai for now. And then Moscow. St. Petersburg never recovered, did it? That's crazy. Los Angeles is going to explode. Did San Francisco explode? Mexico City. Mexico City is the biggest city in population, by population, depending on the way you define it, in North America currently. Osaka booms. 2 Brazilian cities. That's crazy. There's only 3 U.S. cities. So this is a time of relative peace overall. Like, we don't see, like, huge casualty events anymore. There's still a Cold War taking place, and certain places are majorly affected, but the population hubs are not affected anymore. So we're going to see, like, uncontrollable population, which is why, here's the thing. I don't blame a lot of the people. There's, like, this book from, I guess, the 70s that said that, like, by the year 2000, population growth was going to basically destroy all human civilization because it was going to be out of control. I don't even blame them for that, because look at this whole video. This whole video, things have just been out of control. It is so weird that the time we're currently living in, where people are not having babies anymore, and population growth is actually slowing down, and even declining in a lot of places. This is unheard of historically. We've never been through this. It's crazy. So it's hard to imagine anyone being able to predict this. Man, Mexico City in the 70s, the 4th biggest population by population. That's crazy. That's amazing. The rise of the Southern Giants. Mexico City, built on ancient Tenochtitlan, centralized. Brazil, huge city, over 200 million population. There we go, Seoul. I almost didn't say Seoul because I couldn't remember if Seoul was one of the top cities. But bam, by the 80s, Seoul enters the list. That's crazy. So the economic boom of Japan. Wow, Japan's got number 1 and number 2, Osaka as well. Buenos Aires is still very high up there, which is crazy. Los Angeles, Brazil, Moscow's actually dropping a bit. Oh yeah, because the 80s were a bad time for the Soviets. That's why the Cold War ends. Sao Paulo grew from a coffee capital to an industrial colossus. Look at this, 32 million. It's just flexing on people at this point. Japan, chill. Now Japan's population is going to officially start to flatline here. Okay, wow, it's crazy. By the 90s, like, you see three Indian cities, and then just Shanghai here in China. But just wait. So it's really only in the last 30 years India's really starting to explode, though. You have these major... so yeah, Seoul, I guess, is going to drop out. India's urban population grows rapidly as an economic liberalization drives migration. No more Cold War. Bam, Bangladesh, Dhaka has entered. Mexico City. So again, I guess we're going to see exactly how this video defines cities. Is it metropolitan area, or is it just the city proper, or what? Bam. So Japan should stay number 1, but in the future it probably won't. So Delhi's grows into a sprawling metropolitan center, fueled by government expansion, IT. Cairo back on the list, which is a historical norm, I'd like to add. Istanbul, also a historical norm. There you go, Turkey. 2016. I don't think COVID's going to affect too much. Look at how far New York has fallen. There's only one singular U.S. city on this list now. That's crazy. Oh, look at the DR Congo. Yeah, because the only places that are continuing to grow at this point is Africa. So we're only going to see into the future projections more cities in Africa climb on this list. If I can come back 25 years and do another one of these videos, we're going to see more African cities enter the list, and we're actually going to see a lot of flatlining out of places like China. Shanghai probably maxed out here in 30 million. Beijing probably maxed out here 22 million. I mean, they say it's even worse. They say it's even beginning to decline, but the Chinese government's not reporting it. Who knows? But I do like that we're seeing historical norms out of Cairo. Cairo kind of climbing back up on the list. The U.S. just has New York. That's the only city. But this is what we got going on now. Again, I love reviewing these videos by Global Stats. I can tell he puts a lot of work into these videos. The attention to detail is incredible. Big thanks to my patrons this month. If you want your name here, check that Patreon link in the description down below. Never change Drew unless you want to. We need a Drew bobblehead figurine. Petition for Drew to make Hoi4 ASMR Tingles version 2. Fredrik Tibblin, KingBearHaze, LoreTrack, LuxembourgLover, Miglu the Goat, Nolan, NordTyrol, Tambre, and William.